I just don't like to lose.
You see private sector job, pretty soon you'll be courtside at Laker games.
Are you alone?
Do I know you?
Nikki Gardner, your new boss.
By closing out your old job.
Fracture is a tightly wound courtroom thriller that thrives on intellect rather than spectacle, unfolding as a psychological chess match between two brilliant minds standing on opposite sides of the law. Set within the polished yet morally complex world of the American justice system, the story immediately establishes a sense of confidence and control through Willy Beachum, a young, exceptionally talented prosecutor who believes he has already outgrown his current position. He moves through courtrooms with ease, winning cases through precision, preparation, and a sharp understanding of legal procedure. For Willy, the law is less about philosophy and more about execution, a system he has mastered so well that he is ready to trade public service for wealth, prestige, and a future at an elite private law firm. This sense of forward momentum, ambition, and self-assuredness becomes the foundation upon which the film later applies pressure. That confidence is tested when Willy is handed one final case before his departure, a matter that appears so simple it almost feels like an inconvenience. Ted Crawford, an older, wealthy aerospace engineer, has shot his wife in the head at point-blank range. The evidence seems undeniable, the confession straightforward, and the circumstances grim but clear. From Willy's perspective, this is nothing more than a formality, a final win to neatly conclude his prosecutorial career. However, the tone subtly shifts the moment Ted Crawford enters the picture, not as a broken man seeking forgiveness, but as someone eerily calm, controlled, and intellectually alert. From his first words, it becomes apparent that Ted is not interested in mercy or leniency. He is interested in something far more dangerous: control. Ted Crawford's decision to represent himself in court transforms the case from routine to unpredictable. He speaks carefully, chooses his words with surgical precision, and seems less concerned with the emotional weight of his actions than with the mechanics of the trial itself. The courtroom becomes a stage on which Ted slowly reveals his true strength, not through outbursts or manipulation of sympathy, but through a cold, methodical understanding of how the law functions, and more importantly, how it can fail. His intellect is not flashy. It is patient, waiting for others to underestimate him. What initially looked like an open and shut case begins to fracture under scrutiny, exposing cracks that Willy did not anticipate and did not bother to look for. As the trial progresses, the film carefully dismantles the assumption that truth alone is enough to secure justice. Key pieces of evidence are questioned, procedures are re-examined, and technicalities emerge that threaten to undermine the prosecution's entire argument. Willy, who once prided himself on efficiency, now finds himself scrambling to understand how such a seemingly obvious crime could be slipping through his fingers. Each exchange between prosecutor and defendant becomes a duel of logic, where confidence is weaponized and silence can be as powerful as speech. Ted Crawford is no longer simply defending himself. He is actively teaching Willy a lesson about arrogance, shortcuts, and the dangers of assuming the system will always favor those who believe they are right. The relationship between Willy and his boss adds another layer of tension to the narrative. As a seasoned figure within the legal world, his boss represents institutional wisdom and restraint, offering guidance that Willy is often too eager to dismiss. Their interactions reflect a generational divide between experience and ambition, caution and speed. While Willy focuses on moving forward, his boss emphasizes the responsibility that comes with power and the importance of understanding the deeper implications of every case. This contrast quietly reinforces one of the film's central themes: intelligence without humility can become a liability. Emotionally, the story remains deliberately restrained. Rather than relying on dramatic speeches or overt sentiment, the film allows unease to grow through subtle performances and carefully written dialogue. Ted Crawford's personal tragedy, his wife's condition, and the apparent coldness of his actions create a disturbing moral ambiguity. The audience is never encouraged to sympathize with his crime, but they are compelled to acknowledge his brilliance and the unsettling clarity with which he exposes the weaknesses of the legal process. Willy, on the other hand, is forced into a rare position of vulnerability. Each misstep chips away at his self-image, revealing the pressure beneath his polished exterior. As the case evolves, Willy begins to realize that winning is no longer about securing a conviction. It is about understanding Ted Crawford's endgame. The trial becomes less a question of guilt and more a question of intent, design, and consequence. Ted is not simply reacting to events. He orchestrated them long before stepping into the courtroom. This realization shifts Willy's approach, forcing him to slow down, reassess every assumption, and confront his own motivations. The film uses this transformation to explore how personal ambition can cloud judgment and how true competence often emerges only after failure. Visually and structurally, the narrative maintains a clean, controlled pace that mirrors its characters. Courtroom scenes are grounded and realistic, emphasizing procedure over theatrics, while quieter moments allow the psychological tension to breathe. The direction favors clarity, ensuring that every legal maneuver is understandable without being simplified. This balance keeps the audience intellectually engaged, inviting them to think alongside the characters rather than merely observe them. The story trusts its viewers to follow complex arguments and appreciate the significance of minor details, reinforcing the idea that small oversights can lead to monumental consequences. By the time the trial reaches its later stages, the dynamic between Willy and Ted has completely reversed. What began as a final obligation has become a personal and professional reckoning. Willy's future, once so clearly mapped out, now feels uncertain, while Ted Crawford appears exactly where he wants to be, calmly watching the system struggle to contain him. The tension no longer lies in whether the case will end, but in how and what that ending will say about justice itself. The courtroom transforms into a philosophical battleground, questioning whether legality and morality always align. The resolution of the story does not offer easy answers or simple victories. Instead, it reinforces the film's central argument: intelligence, when paired with obsession, can be both a weapon and a trap. Choices made in moments of certainty echo far beyond their immediate consequences, shaping lives in ways that cannot be undone. For Willy Beachum, the case becomes a defining moment, stripping away illusions and forcing him to confront what kind of lawyer and what kind of person he truly wants to be. For Ted Crawford, the outcome reflects the cost of believing one can outthink the world without eventually paying a price. Fracture ultimately stands as a study of power, ego, and the fragile balance between justice and manipulation. Through its sharp dialogue, measured pacing, and commanding performances, it transforms a familiar courtroom setup into a tense exploration of human intellect pushed to its limits. Rather than relying on twists for shock value, the film builds its impact through logic, patience, and psychological depth, leaving a lasting impression long after the final verdict is delivered.